welcome to Etaan. Etaan, Entrepreneurs Take Action Africa Now. The vision behind this is to get entrepreneurs together. My objective is one of the biggest problems we have in Cameroon is lack of information. And so the best way to get information, either as a startup or even as a seasoned entrepreneur, is to be in environments and forums such as this, where you can get access to information from the people working on the ground. So you will notice that our speakers are very, very knowledgeable in their fields. And every month we will be making these phone calls available. I will be moderating. Hopefully we'll have more people who want to moderate with me. But that's really the big and long and short of why we are doing these calls. So welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Gwendolyn Tani. I am CEO, founder of SECPE, which is Standards Excellence Care Property Experts. We have a real estate company in Cameroon, and we dabble in full-scale property management. So my industry is real estate. But our speaker tonight, his industry is agriculture. So before I introduce him, I would like to just do a few housekeeping things. If you're on the call, I can see. Hi, Stephanie. I get to see.
Hi.
Hi. If you think you're going to have some background noise, mute yourself, because this is an important call. I take notes. I recommend and encourage you to take notes, because I learned so much from Rebecca and what she spoke about. And I really want to learn a lot more about agriculture. And I have a feeling, Roland, you're about to bust it out, because some things are happening. I can see them happening. So we're really excited for you. So if you have any questions, there are some icons available. You can click on them if you want to chat. If you have a question, I'd recommend, we're a small group today, but normally I recommend just chatting it, and then that way we can read it to Roland afterwards, just to make sure that we have some order. But outside of that, feel free to ask your questions or keep them to the very end, okay? So without further ado, let me introduce you to Roland. He is the founder and CEO of Greenhouse Ventures. GHV is a seasoned social entrepreneur. And over the past 10 years, he has devoted his time to finding lasting solutions to tackling challenges facing Africa's agricultural communities that make up over 65% of Africa's labor force and account for about 32% of gross domestic product. So Roland started GHV to address some of these challenges, which include improving the agricultural ecosystem, to increase production and profit as a means to empower farmers and promote the cultivation of valued foods in a sustainable manner. Since inception, the company has successfully introduced greenhouse farming to Cameroon and Cameroonians in a way that has attracted and engaged more youth in the industry than usual. His successes are now being replicated in other countries like Uganda, Nigeria, Sudan, Ghana, and the company is currently carrying studies for proper implementation. The successes of GHV have had an immeasurable impact in redefining the status quo and stigma that agriculture has in Africa. You know, people think it's for the poor, the dirty, the uneducated people, but he also portrays an industry that is enjoyable, profitable, sustainable, and saves the environment. So Greenhouse Ventures business has been instrumental in getting these greenhouses in the hands of many users who have attested to its successes in terms of their return on investment. And of course, they're very happy too, right? He is the founder of 2 for-profit companies and 1 not-for-profit organization. He has led research teams to Cameroon, made up of students established through educational networks from the Northeastern University, where he earned a master's in technology entrepreneurship. Roland's solutions and ideas have been implemented in several communities throughout Cameroon and beyond. He is also a visiting lecturer in innovation and entrepreneurship in a few universities in Cameroon. And most recently, he is the regional partner at Faster Capital Firm, a venture capital firm providing seed funds to startups. Roland is a technology and business development expert. He is a philosopher, a success coach, a mentor, a pragmatist, and a thought leader. His ambitions and works are geared towards the establishment of platform with a sustainable business model to engage individuals and communities for wins with outcomes. So I want you to know that it is my honor, my privilege. First of all, I call this dude. I have never met him, right? But we talk as if we're like, same kind of people. He is generous. He's open with his ideas. He's forthcoming. So it is my privilege to really welcome you, Mr. Fomundam, to our forum this evening. So over to you.
Wow. Thanks for having me. And thanks for all who are on board at the moment too. I mean, hearing you read, I mean, be loud about everything kind of hit me so hard. It's like, wow. Anyways, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the program today. Taking after, bigger personalities like Rebecca, someone I respect so much. I think just taking steps after her certainly puts me in that position to be able to do just as much as I can. But I hope the little I can should be enough to take us to wherever we need to go to. Just like you started talking about, one of the issues that we have in the country today, of course, lack of information. Not lack of information, but the lack of the flow of information. They say that information is free, but there is no free flow of information. And that is a very big problem we're getting. I mean, in Cameroon, sometimes it's even just difficult to get directions to the gas station, let alone something else. I mean, so that is so important. And I believe that for those of us who've had access to some information, to learning some things in different ways, to be exposed through different platforms, it is our obligation to be able to share what we have learned, so that facilitating that aspect of knowledge transfer. Networking is also a very, very important aspect of it all. But of course, networking is not just about going out there and giving out business cards or trying to get business cards. It's also being able to have a worth. I usually don't carry business cards, because for me, it is the person whom I need to connect with. We should be connected right in our phones or right away. Many times we take these business cards and we don't even get to use them. But for you to have such an exchange, that person needs to have value. So people need to work on being valuable, being valued, and then of course, the networking could be more fruitful. The areas of mentorship also is very, very important, because today in Cameroon, we have an issue where if you ask yourself, the top Cameroonians of today, how did they get there? It is hard to be able to trace, their success pipeline. There is, you only hear that, well, this person, Kaji was this, he only did this. But in the Western world, of course, if you had to Google someone like Mark Zuckerberg, you would see from his very early days the history, the genealogy, how he started and where he is right now. So the fact that most of us miss that, it affects the way we plan for business, because everything is like we're starting again all over. And those have been some of the greatest challenges I have really had to face. So again, thanks you, Gwen, for setting up this platform. I truly believe that those of us who are opportune to share our stories, those stories that could inspire other people in the audience to also be able to someday share their stories, we can all go on collectively to inspire a new generation of others who can come to do better. I mean, that's the only way I could say we could make the world a better place for us and for those who come after us. So thank you.
You are so, so welcome. And today one of the things that we really want you to share with us is, really what made you get started, and what were the challenges that you faced, and how have you, because I know you're still deep in it. I know you're on CRTV today. You're getting a lot of accolades. People are noticing what you're doing, and people are very interested in what you're doing. So you're very successful. What started you out in this? What made you begin this? And then, given the circumstances in the country, what are the challenges you faced prior and then now? And how are you overcoming those challenges?
First of all, I would tell you that I don't see, I have not seen challenges as obstacles. Of course, they've slowed me down, but most importantly, they have redirected uh, my way of flow. For me, they've actually given me an opportunity to, of course, revise what I'm doing and perfect my art to be able to do better. That, of course, is important. But of course, there are eminent challenges at all points. Challenges, of course, we were introducing something that is fairly new, something that, comes to give a new image to something. And it has been quite difficult for our technology or ideas to have been received. I mean, you are challenging old ideas, or we are challenging older ideas that people are cashing in on right now, and to come and say, well, we want to do something different. I mean, you end up make, a few friends and a lot of enemies. Not bad enemies though, just enemies, of course, who are enemies of progress. You know what I mean? If you introduce a technology that says that, hey, we'll start using less chemical fertilizers, of course, you know that you're going into trouble with those who make those chemical fertilizers. Um,
So
and
just
those are some of the things.
explain to everyone what, in a nutshell, what you do, what you've brought to Cameroon. If you have.
All right, all right. Let me take a step back. So in 2006, it was my first time coming back to the country after I left. I'd been out for about 2 years, and the idea at the time was thinking of what I wanted to do. Because for me, it has always been that I want to come back home from the day I left Cameroon, and it was more so because I believe that there was more to do here than not to do. So 2006, when I started my first trip back, and I realized that within the farming community, there were a lot of voids. We had a lot of loopholes. Of course, there are voids that could be easily filled, but of course, it takes a lot long to be able to achieve that. We went back, and the idea was, how do we come up with ideas that could ameliorate, rural populations? And understanding one thing is that rural populations, their most preoccupation is farming. So our idea was, okay, how do we seek to alleviate issues within the farming sector? We started by developing, sustainable technologies. The first was a solar dehydrator, which was used for post minimizing post harvest losses um, through drying, quite important. But of course, the issues we faced with that was that we couldn't scale the technology. Either would have to increase the price, and with increasing price, then it means the people who have to use it cannot afford it. And if they can't do that, then we have to be dependent on grants and all of that. So the next idea was, okay, let's find out what idea is it that could actually improve production in agriculture and also increase profitability, because we understood that that was one of the main things that was affecting the lack of progress within that industry sector. And that was how we came up with the idea of the greenhouse technology. It is a plastic or glass structure built in the form of a house, a canopy, which we use in growing crops underneath. What it does is that it helps to regulate the climatic conditions within that growing environment, and enabling us to be able to grow several types of things. Some people call them glass houses. Of course, they are greenhouses. And the entire idea about greenhouses is the fact that uh, a greenhouse farm is used to contain greenhouse gases. So to explain that even further, plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, which humans take in the oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. Of course, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and several others gases of this family is what you call greenhouse gases. Of course, they are what pollute the environment, as they will call them, or when they escape in the atmosphere, they block the ozone layer, and of course, what we consider global warming is in effect. So what this greenhouses does is that it doesn't allow these greenhouse gases to escape into the atmosphere. it actually traps the gas and then feeds it back to plants. So plants within a greenhouse environment tends to grow faster, tends to grow healthier, and tends to be more valuable. And that is the whole idea about the greenhouse effect and the greenhouse farms. So within the greenhouse farms, of course, we are able to grow a wide variety of crops year round, irrespective of the external environment, which means that rainy season or dry season, we're able to grow in the same way we do at all times, which is not something that is very common. Of course, during the rainy season, crops get infected a lot with fungi, and that is something that we really don't have. And also within the greenhouse, there is also the less use of water, less use of chemicals, less time spent in there. We use drip irrigation to water our crops, so we spend very little water and water only at the point of the plant. So more so that grass doesn't even get grow within our houses. So there are a lot of advantages about greenhouses, which of course we have not only used them in cultivation of crops, we have also used them for the multiplication of seeds, of seedlings, even of drying wood and drying all the vegetables. We can also use them for drying. So that's a little bit about what the greenhouse technology really is. My company, Greenhouse Ventures, we started exploring this idea in 2014. And up to this moment, we have been able to adapt the technology to be useful in so many parts of the country. We have it now in 6 regions out of 10. We have built in total. We have built in total about 70 greenhouses of different sizes. Not only in Cameroon, we have in Ghana, we have in Ivory Coast, and of course, we are doing a lot of studies to also see how we can expand in most countries in the ECOWAS region. So yes, and in Cameroon, other ideas we're looking to do is being able to engage many others through a franchise model, because we realize that the greenhouses, of course, they are costly, but they are valuable. So our idea is, how do we engage many people so many of us could be part of the cultivation process, and of course aggregation, and then for channeling into several markets, either through processed or still fresh or dried.
So Roland, that is a lot. That's a lot of stuff that you just said. So let me see if I can. That is a lot. What is so involved with something like this? Because you make it sound like you're all set. You have the money. Yeah, this is all happening. We know that the biggest challenge we face as entrepreneurs is finding the finances to fund really lucrative projects. So what are some of the costs involved, and how have you overcome, or how have you pieced together a strategy that allows you to stay in business while you seek solutions for some of these things you talk about? Like, I had never known that there was a post-harvest issue. This is and I really understand the point about having these really controlled environments where you can grow something year round. And then of course there's also distribution. So when you're talking cost-wise, what are we, and how are you addressing those issues?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last few lines you said. You kind of.
I said cost-wise, how are you addressing those issues?
Yes, again, one of the things that we started to do was, how do we make our prizes affordable yet valuable? It has been a very important element to us, because the few other technologies that we introduced prior to this one, we couldn't really get them to market simply because of that aspect. One of the things that we have done is actually using local materials. 80% of our entire construction is done using local materials, and only about 20% is actually being imported. So that is one of them. Another way, when selling to other customers, is we do a shared value. The customer provides housing for workers. The customer can provide their own wood, their land. They can provide their nails. They can also provide labor. I mean, all of that takes to cut, the cost of actually owning a greenhouse. What we preach more about is we're actually not selling a product, but we're selling the value of a particular product. And that is why for many times we just don't sell greenhouses. We seek to sell the value of these greenhouses. So each customer that comes towards us, we have to go through a consultative analysis to best understand how the greenhouse can actually serve them and how they can make their returns on the investment, and how we can also stand to assure them. In terms of acquisition of the greenhouse, I mean, again, the cost would start from anywhere from 200,000 and even all the way to 5 million. It really depends on what you want it for, the size you want it for, the size you want it, what you want to grow, if you have access to water, if you would dig a borehole, there is all of that. If the land is, fertile enough, or you need to bring soil, and all of that. So there are several aspects, but of course we seek to work very closely with each and everyone to make sure that the acquisition, of course, certainly is beneficial in all ways.
So if I had to say between 200 and 5 million, so say I have £1,000,000, I bring it to you, I say, okay, I want to invest in this, right? I give you £1,000,000. Do I have to give you the land, or you go up and find the land or something like that? And then you use them out and you start to make these crops for me. That's I don't, because I know nothing about agriculture. I know how to
Yeah.
make vegetables. I don't know how to grow. So plant whatever you want to plant, and then my return on £1,000,000 every year might be what? 200,000, 300,000.
So we have two programs that address that particular need you just talked about. You have that person who comes in with 1 million CFA francs cash and says, "Okay, Roland, I want to put this money in some sort of an investment." There are two ways. It's either you want a cash investment, or you actually want to own a farm. The person who comes in for cash investment, for cash rewards, of course, we have programs where we sell preference shares at fixed interest rates for fixed periods of time, and there are people who can buy into that. There is other person who says, "Okay, I have some land at my house or somewhere, and I want to put greenhouses on it. Either for personal use or for commercial." There are two ways into that now. One is, okay, if you want to own it for yourself, we can train somebody who will manage it for you. Like, we have a client who has access to a supermarket, and they want to grow their own stuff and be able to sell to this particular line of supermarkets they have. So we build a greenhouse, we train whoever they have for the farm, or we can get someone, train them, and assign them to it. They have someone to follow up, or we can remain as consultants to that. There is another person who comes with us as a franchisee, and we work together. We assess the land, we see what investments need to go on, and then we split that cost of investment. We manage the farm and sell the proceeds, and then can go on splitting the proceeds based on how we agreed in the beginning. So of course, 1 million will certainly buy you a greenhouse, but for us, going into a franchise agreement with us, we need to work on a lot of at least 5,000 square meters, or that carries at least 4 greenhouses of 450 square meters each. But if you came with 1 million CFA, then it would mean you just have to buy into our cash investment, which have payment terms, short term and long term, but the maximum is 3 years.
So for the 5,000 square feet, that would be 5 million. How much is that one?
No, 5,000 square meters. Well, it would depend. Again, it will range from anywhere from 5 to 15 million. Like I said, it depends on what kind of greenhouses we decide to grow on, to build on there, and what needs they have. Every greenhouse farm site we have has a house where our workers live on. We also have to look at the access to roads, access to markets, nearby markets. So we tend to grow based on the markets that are closest. And markets, are not necessarily supermarkets, but a bigger 60% of our markets are home deliveries. So many times we may actually just cultivate a market around where we have farms at.
Wow. So let me ask you this question. When you are dealing with workers in Cameroon, my experience has been it's a very treacherous road. What has your experiences been with workers, and how are you training them? And what do you think? What is your opinion so far of your workers? Are they meeting par, or is that one of your griping points?
Well, yes. I mean, one of my greatest challenges, of course, is human resource, and I mean, oh, I'm sure 80% of entrepreneurs in the country would tell you that. The blame doesn't go on them personally because we live in a system where we are actually taught what is not the right way to do things. We are taught to be very, very gullible. So you tend to have, employees who just want to take processes and instructions. All they want you is to wake up every day and tell them what to do and what not to do. People willing to think on their own feet, people willing to take initiatives, to be responsible, to lead, they shy away a lot from it. So for us, it has been a process of being able to cultivate that aspect, of being able to engineer some sort of leadership attitudes in them, for them to be able to take decisions on their own, but also make rational decisions, which of course are reasonable within the scheme of everything that we work on. Um, of course, there are some who are not meant for that role. You get 100, 25 get to stay with you, and 75 get to leave. So, I mean, you do that over and over. At some point, you tend to have a true breed. People who align with your vision, people who see themselves longer with you, not just as a bridge, but more or less as a value addition and value exchange platform. It is very, very important. So one of the things that I tend to do, of course, is making sure that we can relate to the vision of the company. You can get teams that are interrelatable. Most of my workers are through referrals. A few are just resumes we get from out there because again it gets very tricky. We tend to train all our workers. We also have given a period of grace or probation where they're supposed to meet up, certain expectations. And of course, if not, then we of course part ways. It has been that we work very, very well to understand our cultural complexes within every environment. And we have several types of teams. So we have teams that are focused on the farms, who are farm managers, and we have a construction team. But our construction team varies quite a lot because everywhere we go, we tend to have at least 60% of workers from that particular locality. We may just send our expert technicians to go to that site, but at least 60% are people we recruit from around it. So the construction team, they varies from place to place. And our farm managers, of course, they come from all over and they live on our farms, and we do a lot of rotations from time to time. So they get adapted, they get acquainted, and of course, they get to also learn and see how they grow to be part of the company.
Wow. And that took you how long? Because it sounds so.
Uh, Trust me, it's been a work in progress. I can't lie to you, it's been work in progress because first of all, it's a work of your own very self. You need to be able to have that image, portray that personality for them to actually have to believe in you. Of course, many those who came before us painted a very different picture. Whenever they saw someone who came from abroad, they have different expectations. So trying to be able to clean up that expectation, which is false, which they had, and then make them understand the reality of it. Not that some white man just gave you some money or you just made some money luckily, but that you're trying to do something which has value and something that is here to last for long. Many folks are not used to something lasting long unless you're part of the government or it's been owned by a white hand. And that has always been it. So many people don't get to believe in what is truly ours or truly Cameroonian because there have been a lot of failures, don't get me wrong. So it's been trying to really walk a fine line to showcase that, hey, you have something that is true, is valuable, it has longevity. All we need to do is a collective way of working all together. And that has been most important. It can get very frustrating from time to time, but it gets quite refreshing when you find that the teams that you're working with are actually teams that are meant for you to succeed with. So it has taken us quite some time to be able to cultivate that culture, that mindset, that which now whoever joins the team kind of fits into that. So it gets to be introduced to all the members, and we are more or less getting to a point where we're starting to have a very good, legitimate core team to carry on our processes from time to time and place to place.
Wow. So before I turn it over to the audience, I know they have questions. The last thing I wanted to bring up was the relationship between entrepreneurs and their businesses and the government or some of the tax municipalities. How do you navigate all of the things in Cameroon? Cameroon has a plethora of demands that they want us as entrepreneurs to meet up with, but these demands are not necessarily transparent. You usually find out about it because somebody reports you and then they come and they give you a demand. How do you navigate some of those issues, tax issues, stamp all those things, so you're on the right side of the government, so that you feel like what you're doing is being fairly and appropriately taxed, that you are declaring those taxes, and that you know that you have a legitimate business and there's no fear of any ramification? How do you navigate that?
You know, that's the question we get asked all the time. And I will tell you one thing, it's a little secret. Well, now it wouldn't be a secret anymore. The key is agriculture. The agricultural sector in Cameroon and in many other countries is a sector that has the fewest barriers. If you ever have to think about anything, I mean, there is never a day a tax guy would come to my farm to steal my farm, right? I mean, the agro sector is the one sector where we are light on, and I mean, all these regulations. Most people probably don't understand that. It is, and I encourage a lot of people because it could be a blanket to a lot of things, especially people with goodwill. It's a pathway to get to so many places. And there's a lot to be done within it. I mean, that's why I would assure you that over 90% of the top civil servants in the country have some sort of agricultural activity investment that they're making. 15 of our top 30 billionaires, of course, have agriculture as one of their investments. So yes, the agricultural sector is quite an interesting sector with very few barriers. So for me, people complain, have a lot of these complaints, but to be honest, and I don't want to sound like it's all easy on this side, but yeah, I mean, these are one of the advantages that we're getting. So in terms of how we get to deal with, government, to be honest, treat government as a customer and not a funder. And treat them as like a desperate customer. That's the part most people don't understand. You have people who've come here with great ideas, and the first thing is they want to push it down the government's throat. They want to get a contract. Governments don't pay your monies right away. They can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years before your payments to be made. Worst is when that person within government who authorized your work, is being removed from power. You have to start again all over. But of course, if you sell to the government as a desperate customer, where they know that they would come back to you again, it makes them understand that bills have to be paid. And of course, when you don't depend on them as the only customer, you know that you don't have to beg them. When you have to beg the government, then of course you're setting yourself up for desperation. So the government is an ally. That's one thing to understand, and it's a very good customer. But it's a customer that plays on its own terms. So you have to be able to fix yourself to be able to treat government as the customer that you want them to be. If not, focus on the private sector, build a larger market segment, and then make sure that with or without the government, you can still make it. Those are some of the ways that we have really been getting ourselves around to a point where additional government comes more like a bonus rather than that which keeps your head above the ground.
Wow. I want to just, before I hand over, I just want to reiterate some of the stats you just gave. 90% of civil servants in Cameroon have some kind of agricultural business. That's huge. That's huge. 15
Oh,
of
yeah.
the top 30 billionaires in Cameroon all have agricultural businesses. And then I love when you say treat the government as a desperate customer, not as a funder. It's like almost like a light bulb goes off, because people tend to believe that you come to this country, oh, the government has money, I'm going to find a government contract and I'm set. You might have a government contract, but you might not be paid for that contract, as you said, for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's interesting because Rebecca, during our last call, hinted on the same thing about having received her payment 2, 3 years later. And that can really, if you're not stable and have no means to sustain yourself, your firm, or it will crumble. There's no way. And I love the last you said, think of the government as a good ally and a good customer. That's a really, I think that puts the government in a good light. It sets the limitations that they have, but it also enables you to feel like you can have a relationship with them that can empower you and allow you to proceed. So that is phenomenal. Thank you for that, Roland. So it is
Thank you.
2 minutes into their question time. Does anyone have a question? This is your opportunity, please.
Yeah, I think someone wrote a question. But yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, I see questions here. All right, let me ask the first one. So from experience, what is the average profit margin for each greenhouse? And what has been some of the challenges you've had, if any?
Well, first of all, the challenges we have is every new site has what you call, we have to standardize the site. So usually our first harvest at a particular site is usually not up to our expectations. Because we're trying to understand the right seeds to use, the right method of cultivation, and all of that. That has been it. But of course, within we can always guarantee a return on investment within 24 months from the time of investment. I mean, that's in the worst case scenarios that we do get to have. Another thing to also understand is you get higher profit margins when you have more than a certain number of greenhouses, so at least 3 or 4. And the reason of that is when you are able to grow without any interruption. Whenever there is an interruption in production, you lose those customers. And once you lose those customers, to get them back again, it's an issue. So having the returns, the profit margins you would make from one greenhouse are totally different from that which you would make from 4 or 10 greenhouses. We are at a point now where we have a constant production year round. So we can guarantee 100 kilograms of a particular produce every week. But of course, if you just had one greenhouse, then you may harvest everything within 3 months. And of course, would have to wait another 2 to 3 months to be able to have another harvest.
That makes sense. So would you say, so that's, because that makes a lot of sense, right? And I know you guys understand this on the phone, right? So what he's saying is, if you have something, you harvest in 3 months, then you have to replant and then wait. So you have that dead period, right? Whereas if you have 2 or 3, as one is producing, the other one is seeding and growing. And so you have more a sustainable, sort of a continuous flow of income. So what you see on average, if you do have 2 or 3 or 4, a profit margin would be around what, 40, 50, 60, 70%, 30, 20? What is the ballpark?
Yeah. Well, you not to get you people too excited, but yeah, you can count profit margins from about 30 to even 150. And again, it depends on what you actually grow, the market you sell to. I'll give you an example. We grow bell peppers. We grow the. Hello?
No, someone just needs to mute, I think. Let me see who it is. Can everyone please mute? Let me see, I'll be able to tell. But go ahead in the meanwhile.
Yes. So we have bell peppers which we sell for 5,000 francs a kilogram. These are the same bell peppers you would buy in supermarkets for 13,500, and like places like Casino and all of that. Of course, in areas where we can grow those bell peppers, the returns on investments are higher than places where we grow cucumbers, where we sell 1,000 francs per kilogram. So again, like I said, you know, the profit margins will take you anywhere from a mere 20% and even to above 100 and plus. The other thing is where you actually have the farm site. How far is it, you know, from roads? Is it an area where you can actually sell to those localities? We have a greenhouse farm at Japuma. Japuma is actually one of the newer cities in Douala, actually where they have one of the football stadiums, and it's a very strategic location for us. It's very residential. Our margins there are quite higher because there's no market nearby, and everyone in that area buys from the farm that we have in that area. So of course that is different from a farm that is more in a different location. So again, we don't have any fixed margins, but our margins are very positive. And you just require the right people to be able to manage your farm to give you the right results.
Wow. Wow. And so I think, so Mr. Munuza, there we go. Did he have other questions about the product? Because he said, what are some of the products? You said bell peppers. What else? I've seen cucumbers.
Yes. Yes.
What else?
Yes. We can. So we grow based on the region. We've grown from tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, bell peppers, okra. We've even grown popcorn. We've grown lettuce. We've grown strawberries. We've grown kale. We've grown beetroots. So yeah, any kind of temperate or tropical crop, we've been able to grow that. Again, the advantages within the greenhouse is it's like having a kid in an incubator. You know, it's like a clean environment where you can grow almost anything. But of course, since we are in tropical areas which are warmer, they would more or less suffice for crops that could withstand certain temperatures. So again, there's a lot you can grow within the greenhouse, quite a lot. You just need to be able to modify or control that environment. So one of the things that we get to do, which let me explain a little bit, is how we control the environment in our greenhouses. So we build them and we position them based on the wind direction, wind speed, and all of that. We use a manual ventilation, which allows us to open up during the day and close out at night. So average temperatures in our greenhouses are still relatively warmer at night than you would have them. In like places like Bamenda, where nights and early mornings are very cold and then the days are very hot. We tend to be able to play with that. Another advantage that we have within our greenhouse is that we actually hand pollinate our flowers. So by hand pollinating them, we are able to ensure that every fruit becomes a fruit. We are able to cross pollinate. There's a lot that we actually do within our greenhouse with the crops. So we haven't really had an issue with whatever we grow. Again, unless it's like a crop that needs to be grown in a cold environment, then we don't have that. But anything that is okay with warm climates, then we've been able to grow. We can grow that, and for now, we actually just grow based on what the market really needs.
Okay. Okay. There is some feedback, I think, on your mic, but let me ask you, and it might be mine too, because I hear it. So we have a message for you from someone on an iPhone. Thanks, Roland, for this opportunity. Just curious, greenhouse agriculture has a major part to play in climate change. I know there are so many green bonds being offered for projects like yours. Have you been able to tap into that, and how did you go about that, if you have? Roland? We lost Roland. Roland. Okay, Roland has dropped off. We're going to wait for him to come back on, and then I guess he'll answer that. So this 750 is kind of interesting. I want to just kind of share some things that I've been able to be privy to since I got here. this trip, which is the insights into the present situation in Cameroon and some of the business opportunities. I have been looking around to see what one can do to offer Cameroonians, especially in the diaspora, opportunities to open up businesses in Cameroon without necessarily having to come here and open it off themselves. There is a saying that when you have a business in Cameroon, you have to be here in order to make it grow. That is true. That is true for any business. But people stop and don't even open up a business because they don't have the information where to start. How do I get an account? How do I do my localization? How do I get my certification? How do I open up my company? So one of the things CPA is trying to do is we're working with attorneys, and you're going to start seeing that information on our website. And these are attorneys who have guaranteed information and know how to open up companies on your behalf, whether you are Cameroonian or not. So keep in mind that for some of us who are still Cameroonian, then you have your carte d'identité. Things are a little bit more easy for you. But if you are not and you have an American passport, that is not the deterrent. You can still own a company in Cameroon. And if you can own a company in Cameroon and open up your business in Cameroon, that's step one. Now, a lot of people have come here from the diaspora and have not been successful in even opening up the business because there's so many obstacles and steps. So we create this pipeline where we have the proper authorities who can go into the different cities and actually get that paperwork for you. And for a lump fee, you pay one lump fee and they give you what you need. Wouldn't that be something that I think people would be interested in? Don't you? What do you guys think? You think so? So what we're trying to do is implement that, because one of the industries that are booming now in Cameroon, let me tell you, decor. Crazy crap is happening in Cameroon with decor. There is a sense of people want to go above and beyond. So if I go to someone's event and they have 10 chairs, at the next event we want to see 10 Chevari chairs. We want to go up, we want to take it up a notch. So the amount of money individuals are willing to expend now for catering and decor is what we call service traiteur, is so much more than what you would envisage when we left this country so many years ago. So decor is a huge thing.
All right, I'm back.
You're back. Okay. Before you, let me just. I was just trying to tell them some of the other places, the other business opportunities. Decor is one. As he referenced, agriculture is huge, because there's a shortage of food, not only in Cameroon but also in neighboring countries like Nigeria, where they want us to. If we can coordinate, collaborate to get the proper distribution channels with some of the sustainable technology that he's implementing, this food can be transported outside of Cameroon in even greater volumes for maybe lower margins, but for much more profit in the long run. The other business that's really big in Cameroon right now is real estate. Why? Because most of the homes that were built way back when are dilapidated now. And so they need to be renovated and redone. And 90% of most owners do not have the income to be able to do it. So if you are into real estate, want to get into real estate, one of the things I'm advocating for me in real estate is looking for those business partners who want to partner with me to take projects and renovate and actually get good rents for properties, because there are individuals willing to pay. It's about pricing it out right. It's about having the knowledge. It's about knowing what cities, Douala and Yaoundé, are the most saturated, but they still need housing, and understanding that the current political environment does not really help our situation, but it doesn't stop it from booming. Cameroon is still very, very viable. I want you guys to. So Roland, let me take this back to you. The question that came from this individual from an iPhone was, greenhouse agriculture has a major part to play in climate change. I know there are so many green bonds being offered for projects like yours. Have you been able to tap into that? And if so, how did you about it?
Um, I think the first aspect is, first of all, identifying a niche that you best can be a part of, a niche where you fit in very well. To me, that's very important. And then the second aspect is how, if given the chance, you can actually self-execute it. That's always something that is important. People will just get into any side of business because you see the rewards in it, but not rewards that you can actually attain or achieve, or those which the potential is actually needed. Um, they're far-fetched. Some people get into business because, okay, they believe that I will bribe somebody to get my way, or like most people who get into contracts, they just believe that, well, it's all about, okay, you get a contract and you find somebody to give money and and things get to happen. There's a lot of that. So first of all, is people need to be true about what their intentions are and what their wishes and their desires really should be. Of course, Cameroon has a lot of loopholes, has a lot of voids, it has a lot of gaps. I think the key thing is using that to see how you can make it better, rather than to instead use it to crumble the system that is already limpid. To me, it's just investing in the right kind of business with the right mindset and with a zeal to want to do better than anyone has ever gotten to do. To me, that's where it really starts from. Cameroon is a very open and virgin territory. The ways to do things are still undefined or misdefined. So there's a lot of room for changes. There's a lot of room for modification. There's a lot of room for amelioration. There is not a one way that makes things work. So I'm just trying to go with your question because I just don't want to tell people that this is what works and what doesn't work, because sometimes what might work is not what will work in your own very case, but it's making sure that you understand exactly what you're doing, how you want to do it, the environment you're playing in, who are the players, and how you get to go about with your stuff. When we started with agriculture, of course, it was no news. No one even cared about what we're doing. I mean, we're laughed at in so many places. Of course, they will tell you that, hey, other people go to America to learn about engineering and aircrafting and doctors. You go and learn about agriculture to come teach us agriculture, something we've been doing for 200 years. I mean, where do you begin with that? You hear stories like, hey, agriculture is for people who have been experienced or people who've gone to school for agriculture. I never went to school for agriculture. I studied business. But of course, in business, you understand about opportunities and gaps and values and markets. So I think it takes a mind that is able to understand those avenues to be able to do well in it.
Awesome, awesome. Is there any other questions before, because we're almost at the top of the hour? Are there any other questions? Okay, well, first of all, this has been a lot of information. See, I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of notes. I take these notes because I feel like I need to be a walking encyclopedia. When people ask me about Cameroon, what is possible, it's important for me to always leave a bright impression. Malgré or despite all of what's going on that we are all aware of, this country has a lot of opportunities and is still very viable. Roland, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I cannot thank you enough for the knowledge you've shared with us today. One of the things that we're hoping is that we can use this platform to connect, so that if you know someone who knows something or someone who can assist in either, assisting with funding or assisting even with knowledge or with payroll, because I'll tell you, human resource management in Cameroon is quite tricky. I know you've been doing this for a while, Laura. I'm still in the beginning stages. It's been 2 years for me, and I'm still fighting through the mentality and the culture. So if this is a platform where we can share information. And next month, our speaker will be CEO of Obamba, Ms. Viola Lewin, and they're all about providing funding for some of these local businesses and hooking them up with distribution channels that are even outside of Cameroon to assist with marketing their products. So that I'm really looking forward to information as well. So if you want to attend that, just let me know, shoot me an email, and I'll make sure I'll include you in that. But Roland, you've been phenomenal. Thank you so much. I asked you and you said yes. And that's all that I needed to hear. That's all I needed to know. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you, and thanks for setting a platform like this. And thank you for all those who have been online. I hope I was able to answer some of your questions and motivate or inspire you in some ways. Cameroon is a great place, despite all the odds. I think at the end of the day, look at what is going right and what is going wrong with it. And there's a lot that we can make right in the place that it is. So thank you all again, and I hope one way or the other we would stay connected.
Yes, we will. And this recording will be on the Etaan website in case you want to share it with other people. We are growing small. We're growing.
Okay.
So let's see how this movement moves and how people respond to it. And when we grow really good knowledge tool, then at that point we'll look about coming together and seeing how we can speak to each other face to face and really move the needle in the direction that it needs to go. So without further ado, good night, everyone. If you're in Cameroon, like we are, and if you're in America, good night.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.